Doubt presses against the edges of dawn, whispering that the chaos you carried through the night will break upon you again. Yet the first breeze of morning brushes your face with a breath of stillness, inviting you to trust that even the fiercest storms bow to a voice deeper than thunder. In this pale, gold-hushed the city still sleeps, and every restless worry pauses. Here God stands as your unshakable refuge, a shield no wind can pierce. You are called to loosen your grip on frantic plans, open your palms, and let His sacred silence settle over the rising stir of the day. Psalm 4:6 and 10. The Holy One commands quiet, not as an option, but as a lifeline, promising His presence where striving ends. What fear will you surrender before sunrise? Which hidden ache will you entrust to the One who breathes peace into your bones? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into the first movement of dawn's liturgy, into the breath of stillness that steadies your soul. You open the window before light fully wakes the horizon, and cool air slips in like a tender hand upon your brow, drawing you into a slower rhythm than the world demands. You notice how your lungs receive this gift without negotiation. Inhale, exhale, a silent covenant of life, and you realize that each breath is permission to release the weight you were never meant to shoulder alone. The sparrows begin their tentative song, unhurried, unafraid, trusting invisible currents to carry them. Their simple melody reminds you that trust is as natural as breathing when you remember whose wind sustains you. So you stand, feet bare on the floorboards, and feel the grain of the wood telling stories of storms endured and seasons survived. You let that story become your own, a narrative rooted, not toppled, because the carpenter of souls chose to dwell in fragile timber and teach it resilience. With every measured inhale, you draw into your depths the whisper peace, be still. With every exhale, you let anxiety spill out like dark ink diluted in clear water, watching it vanish beyond recall. You do not need to force this quiet, you only need to receive it. Jesus once calmed a tempest with a word, but before He spoke to the waves, He slept upon them, showing that rest precedes authority. You remember this and choose rest now, not as idleness, but as fierce obedience to mercy. Matthew 11:28. Here the Nazarene invites you into His gentle cadence, trading your labor for His lullaby of grace. In this breathing space, you confess the smaller storms, the unfinished conversation that pricks your conscience, the financial cloud casting long shadows, the diagnosis you have not uttered aloud. You lay them like stones beside a tranquil river, trusting the current of His faithfulness to smooth their roughness. You imagine His Spirit hovering over your waters as at the world's first dawn, shaping order from formless depths, lighting dark crevices with purpose, and you dare to believe that the same artistry continues in you, today, this very hour, with every pulse of your heart. Now a soft rustle from the nearby trees reminds you that even leaves must yield to breeze to avoid tearing from their branches. You decide to bend, not break, yielding plans that seemed urgent last night, but already feel lighter in morning clarity. You pray without words, a language older than speech, the slow rise and fall of your chest, the steady drum of your heartbeat, the whispered agreement that God alone is enough. In that silent conversation, courage begins to kindle, as sure and gentle as the pink edge spreading across the sky. You linger one moment more, listening for nothing, and thereby hearing everything. The ticking clock, the hum of distant traffic, the almost imperceptible sigh of your own resting soul. All these sounds form a quiet litany declaring that life continues under watchful eyes, more faithful than sunrise. Carry this stillness with you. Let it be a hidden well from which you drink whenever storms threaten. For now, morning has breathed peace into you, and you are ready to walk the hours ahead in its steady rhythm. You step outside, still barefoot, and feel dew, cool blades of grass cushioning each footfall, reminding you that the ground beneath every fear is steady when you remember who laid its foundation. A pale strand of amber light unfurls across the eastern edge of the sky, and with it rises a quiet conviction that unseen hands hold the seams of creation, and hold you no less securely. You recall how ships lower heavy iron into restless water to find stability. Likewise, your soul lowers confidence into the depths of God's character until waves above can no longer dictate your course. Trust is not passive. It is an act much like planting. You press hope deep into fertile soil, cover it with patience, and wait for what only heaven can coax to life. You picture your heart as a young sapling trembling in the wind, roots searching for anchor, and you sense the Spirit guiding them towards subterranean rivers that never run dry. Jeremiah 17:7-8. Blessed are you when reliance digs deep. Even in drought you stay green, bearing quiet fruit beyond the reach of circumstances. Memories flicker, moments when trust felt reckless, yet every risk became a doorway to provision. The job that arrived at the final hour, the friend whose call interrupted loneliness, the diagnosis reversed without explanation, each story a stone set into an altar of remembrance. You gather those stones again this morning, stack them in your mind, and let their weight counterbalance today's unknowns. The stack grows taller: tuition deadlines, fragile relationships, unanswered prayers, yet beneath each concern gleams an older testimony that mercy outlives scarcity. You breathe and trace the contours of worry troubling your chest, the project deadline you cannot shift, the child's fever that returned in the night, the looming decision demanding wisdom. One by one you imagine tying these concerns to thick hemp ropes and lowering them overboard into the fathomless faithfulness of God, each rope slackening as burdens settle on bedrock rather than on your shoulders. The vessel of your life, lighter now, rises higher on the water, able to navigate narrow straits with quiet ease. Birdsong crescendos overhead, an untrained choir rehearsing trust without rehearsal. Finches dart between branches with no ledger of tomorrow's seed. Their confidence is woven into creation itself. You gather courage from their small witness and speak aloud, soft but certain. I trust you. The words feel fragile, yet they travel farther than you imagine, carried on currents of grace to the throne that shaped galaxies. Heaven hears, responds, and an unseen current shifts, aligning possibilities you cannot yet perceive. A breeze bends the nearby maple, but its trunk remains unbroken, scarred from earlier storms yet stronger because of them. So too your spirit, marked by past trials, yet each scar has become a conduit for wisdom, allowing new winds of purpose to slip through without splitting you apart. You thank God for scars that now hold stories of resilience, and for promises that outshine predictions. Trust alters posture, shoulders unclench, jaw softens, gaze lifts. By choosing anchored faith, you reclaim energy once spent rehearsing disaster. You taste liberty in your own breathing, like a harbor after night's commotion. Boats bobbing gently, ropes secure. In this harbor you set today's agenda before God, inviting Him to reprioritize any task that does not serve eternal good. The list reorders itself in your imagination. People before projects, kindness before speed, presence before productivity. Peace follows that rearrangement like sun following cloud break. Morning broadens, gilding rooftops, and you carry within you an anchored trust capable of outlasting afternoon tempests. Whatever weather arrives, your confidence is moored to a rock that generations have leaned upon. You step back inside, heartbeat resonating with a single conviction. Storms may rise, but you no longer drift, for your trust has found its depth in Him. You step toward the kitchen as sunrise spreads like molten copper along the counter, and steam from a tea kettle curls upward in unraveling ribbons. An earthly echo of prayers rising before you voice them. As the water hums, you feel inside the resonance of unspoken thunder deadlines colliding, conversations unfinished, grief that drifts in without warning. Rather than suppress the rumble, you choose acknowledgement. Tempests lose leverage when named. So you open your journal and let ink trace every turbulent thought, refusing to let them whirl invisibly within. Now you picture each written worry folded into a paper boat. One by one, you set those fragile vessels onto an imagined river that flows from the throne of grace, current steady, banks secure. Some boats carry memories so weighty their hulls dip, others bear dreams postponed by circumstance. All surrender to the same merciful tide, and you watch them glide beyond sight, trusting they land in hands wiser than yours. Casting burdens is not abdication, but courageous partnership. You recall the fisherman, apostle urging believers to throw anxieties upon the Lord, not stack them neatly at His feet where retrieval is easy. Sulla 1 Peter 5:7, he invites you to transfer ownership, because divine care is not consultancy, it is adoption of every fear you relinquish. As kettle whistling crescendos, you pour water over leaves, an aroma of bergamot fills the room. The simple ritual teaches release. Leaves surrender flavor to heat, and in yielding they impart comfort. You sip slowly, letting warmth seep into your chest, imagining it dissolving knots of tension. Each swallow becomes a silent yes to the invitation of rest. Outside, clouds gather in grey layers, promising afternoon rain, yet you feel no dread. You have transferred meteorology of the heart to the maker of galaxies. A crack of distant thunder rolls, but rather than tighten, you lift your face, sensing that even thunder is a psalm in a deeper liturgy. You whisper, "Your will, not mine," and those 4 words unclasp the last fist of control. Surrender reshapes perception. Where you once saw impending loss, you now glimpse room for unexpected provision. Where you feared silence, you discern a canvas for divine reply. Even regrets soften, becoming fertile soil where humility germinates compassion. You bless the day you cannot manage, because blessing turns uncertainty into opportunity for wonder. With hands free, you begin arranging breakfast, fruit sliced, bread toasted, butter melting. Ordinary tasks that become sacramental now that anxiety no longer crowds the table. You move slowly, attentive to textures and scents, and you realize the kingdom often comes disguised as simplicity. In these mundane movements you practice trust embodied. Every deliberate action is a hymn declaring he reigns over both cosmos and crumbs. Finishing the meal, you walk to the doorway and place one hand on the frame, pausing. Inside, the simmer of responsibilities waits. But so does the steady heartbeat of peace. You decide that throughout this day, whenever storm thoughts reappear, you will exhale their names and visualize more paper boats released downstream. The river is unending. There is no quota on surrender. The sky brightens at the edges despite brooding clouds, and you feel the quiet certainty that storms may circle, yet none can rewrite the verdict of grace already spoken over you. You step forward, lighter, ready to meet the hours with open palms rather than clenched fists. You retreat to a corner where morning light glows through sheer curtains, transforming the room into a quiet sanctuary, and you sit with spine upright, palms open on your knees, breathing until the inner chatter thins like mist burned away by sunrise. Sounds outside, the distant rumble of traffic, a neighbor's door closing, pass through you without snagging. They are notes in a wider symphony, but you are listening for the still, small cadence that underlies them all. Silence here is not emptiness, it is fertile, alive, thick with possibility, the very atmosphere in which divine whispers germinate. You recall how the prophet learned that God was not in the earthquake or fire, but in a gentleness so fine it could have been missed by anyone rushing. I 1 Kings 19:12 revelation often hides in soft edges. Slowing down sharpens hearing until faint truth becomes audible. A clock ticks, marking seconds like beads sliding through patient fingers, and you notice how time itself bows before this hush. No longer a tyrant chasing you forward, but a servant offering margin. In this moment you let unfinished tasks hover at the edge of awareness without urgency, acknowledging their existence yet denying them dominance. You savor the rare sensation of needlessness, nothing demanded, everything given. Silence begins to speak. First it names your hidden motivations, tenderly exposing ambitions that masquerade as service. Then it uncovers buried wounds, still pulsing beneath practiced smiles. You do not flinch. Within this serenity, honesty feels safe. Even confession becomes a kind of worship because it agrees with God's assessment and trusts His remedy. You whisper apologies for hurried prayers, for loving applause more than obedience, for doubting goodness when answers delayed. You feel no condemnation, only a gentle nudging toward deeper authenticity. A leaf detaches from the oak outside and glides earthward in slow spirals. Its graceful surrender models what you seek, releasing grip on branches that once defined identity, trusting air currents to carry you where roots cannot. Your life, too, is invited into such surrender, allowing ego, schedule, and noise to drift away so the soul can land softly in God. You open scripture and let your gaze fall on ancient words. Or in quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 13:5. Strength here is counterintuitive. It grows not through exertion, but through yielded stillness, drawing power from the very pause the world calls weakness. Minutes pass unmeasured, and gradually you detect an interior spaciousness, as though walls have expanded beyond limitation. Ideas arrive unforced, like birds settling on calm water. Solutions to yesterday's dilemma flicker into clarity. Relationships once strained appear bathed in fresh compassion. You realize silence is not a vacuum, but a conduit through which wisdom travels. Gratitude wells, wordless and wide, until it overflows in a soft exhale. Thank you. Nothing more feels necessary. The syllables are enough to echo through eternity, carrying with them all the unspoken gratitude for breath, sunrise, forgiveness, promise. Before rising, you set an intention. Throughout today, you will guard small pockets of hush, pausing in a hallway, turning off music while driving, lingering over a cup of water, to let sacred silence recalibrate your pace. For in the hush you have discovered not the absence of sound, but the presence of God. And this awareness will accompany you like gentle background music, guiding tone and choice long after noise resumes. You stand at the seam between hush and activity, sensing resilience unfurling inside you like a sail catching first breeze. The stillness you welcomed has not left a hollow. It has opened a chamber where courage can rise without strain. Shoulders lower, chin lifts, and you feel your inner frame reinforced by unseen hands weaving grace through bone and sinew. This new vitality is understated, more hum than shout, yet ready to illuminate every hallway you enter today. You remember distant ridgelines, immovable summits sculpted by ages of hidden pressure, yet their majesty began as molten rock thrust skyward. Likewise, nights of strain once feared have fused layers of perseverance beneath your spirit. Challenges appear, and instead of recoiling, you sense resolve, because muscles recall lifting burdens heavier than today's tasks, and nerves remember outlasting news that once shattered certainty. These memories now testify you endure, and endurance has matured into quiet confidence, prepared for new horizons. Power swells further as gratitude turns outward. You practice the generosity of attention, greeting each person not as obstacle or accessory, but as bearer of sacred worth. Such recognition converts routine exchanges into conduits of blessing, and paradoxically, blessing others multiplies your own stamina. A word of encouragement returns like sunlight off calm water. A sincere compliment refreshes you like crisp air after rain. The more hope you pour, the deeper your reservoir of strength grows, rising within you like a spring no drought can drain. You scan the day's agenda, meetings requiring clarity, errands demanding patience, unforeseen problems that may gust like sudden squalls. Rather than dread them, you regard them as gymnasiums where resilience proves itself through kindness, diligence, and mercy. Picture a willow flexing in wind. Each sway thickens hidden rings. Every interaction today offers similar concentric growth, fortifying character in ways spreadsheets can't record. You tie your shoes, an ordinary act often ignored, yet the crossing and cinching of laces remind you that discipline binds raw potential into purposeful stride. You whisper intentions into the knot, walk humbly, listen keenly, act justly. The knot responds with silent resolve, holding those vows until nightfall. Energy spreads from core to limbs, urging movement. Perhaps a brisk walk before emails, or a stretch that awakens shoulders and back. Motion translates internal readiness into visible rhythm. Footsteps sync with heartbeat, lungs fill with crisp promise, and even sidewalks seem to echo anticipation. The world may still be yawning, but your spirit advances on midday strength distilled from dawn. When doubts attempt return, you meet them without argument, presenting simple testimony, calm already tasted, trust anchored, storms relinquished, silence embraced. Doubt cannot dispute lived reality. You acknowledge its presence, smile, and let it dissolve like fog before rising sun. By the time sunlight pours across pavement, your presence itself feels like warmth, quiet yet steady, a harbor light sweeping restless waves. Colleagues may not trace the source, yet they will sense safety in your measured words, courage in your tempered gaze. Within, strength keeps rising like tide beneath faithful moon, assuring you that whatever the hours demand, abundant grace waits in reserve. The horizon finally unveils its full spectrum. Rose, coral, pale gold, painting every rooftop while birds sweep low like brushstrokes, finishing a hidden masterpiece. And you feel serenity settling upon you the way light enfolds the earth without request. Peace is no longer an abstract prayer, but a living atmosphere that clings to skin and thought alike, softening every edge the night had hardened. You move through the quiet house, touching doorknob, cup, and coat with deliberate gentleness, as though each object deserves to share in this dawning calm. Even the floorboards seem to sigh in relief beneath your measured steps, grateful that frantic pacing has given way to poised movement. You open the front door and inhale air, kissed by sunlight on damp earth. It carries faint fragrance of blooming jasmine and distant bakery crusts, tangible proof that life renews itself unabated. Cars begin their morning murmur, yet instead of jarring, the sounds stack into a subtle harmony undergirded by the deeper hush you still carry. Children's laughter drifts from a window, reminding you that innocence endures despite headlines. You smile, understanding this is the music of the kingdom breaking through ordinary streets. Walking toward your day, you notice how peace alters perspective. The mailbox becomes a portal of connection, rather than a vessel of bills. The neighbor's dog barking turns from annoyance to invitation to acknowledge another beating heart. Traffic lights, once tyrannical, now feel like rhythmic guardian angels pacing your journey. Even the office building, glass glinting in fresh brilliance, looks less like a fortress of deadlines and more like fertile ground awaiting seeds of kindness you are ready to plant. At your desk you pause before the screen illuminates, letting one silent breath fill the gap between stillness and task. You picture threads of tranquility woven through every email, meeting, and decision, strengthening them like golden fibers in ordinary cloth. Co-workers will taste this quiet in your cadence, and some will ask why your eyes reflect morning even at noon. You will answer not with sermons, but with patient listening, steady words, and actions shaped by compassion. In this way, peace propagates silently, persistently, until anxious corridors become hallways of hope. Midday challenges inevitably arise. A sudden schedule change, a terse message, a plan unraveling, but you greet them with the poise of sunrise remembered. You summon the practice of earlier hours, slow inhale, deliberate release, internal prayer too soft for ears yet strong enough to tame turmoil. What once would have ignited storm now dissolves like mist on warm stone. Your calm becomes a shelter others unconsciously seek, and you offer it freely, knowing supply outstrips demand in the economy of grace. As afternoon shadows lengthen, you sense gratitude circling back, reminding you that the stillness requested at dawn has accomplished its purposey storms within have been hushed, and outward circumstances no longer dictate the tenor of your soul. You recognize that each day will require this renewal, but the path is now familiar. Breath, trust, surrender, silence, strength, peace. You close your laptop, step outside, and watch a final shaft of sunlight skate across the pavement. It touches you like a benediction, confirming what your heart already knows. The calm received this morning is strong enough to carry you through twilight and beyond. You have breathed in calm air, anchored trust like a shore mooring, released every storm on a river of surrender, sat within sacred silence until wisdom spoke, and risen on strength gentler than thunder yet tougher than stone. Now peace walks beside you into streets and conversations, lighting faces, thawing worries, lifting burdens. Let that quiet presence travel in your words, linger in your pauses, widen in your laughter, and settle like dew on everyone you meet. Carry dawn inside you all day long, and when night returns, remember you already know the path back to stillness.